and welcome to this conversation, Medley Moments. I think it's so appropriate that this is the first Medley Moment that we've done live. We are believers in human connection and human stories, and seeing you in person is fantastic. So thanks for having me here at Carlyle.
Well, I really appreciate you having me. You and I have been friends for a long time, and it's actually a privilege to be here with you. So thank you.
Well, we have been friends for a long time. We first met years ago while we were both at Goldman Sachs. Our first interactions actually were grounded in client conversations. Lindsay was a extraordinary and still is an extraordinary client person because of her ability to really listen, understand, and think through what is top of mind for clients, their priorities, and how, at the time, Goldman Sachs, now Carlyle, could add value to their growth and opportunity. So I'm going to start off with an introduction of Lindsay. It's hard to make it brief because it has been quite an extraordinary run. Lindsay is currently the Chief Operating Officer at Carlyle. What does that mean? It means Carlyle, a company with $435 billion in assets, 3 business segments, 606 investment vehicles, operates around the world. And at the core, people are at the core of what Carlyle does. Prior to joining Carlyle, Lindsay worked for 20 years at Goldman Sachs, where I had the privilege to work with and learn from Lindsay and all of her client work. She was a partner managing one of the most significant growth opportunities from a client perspective. She became an advisory director, a role that is given to, quite frankly, a few partners as they look to expand partners' impact into a broader set of businesses. And she really took the time in her role as a leader to appreciate how important it was to get the right people in the organization to really provide leverage and impact for clients. So that's what stands out. There's a lot more that we could talk about, including founding a company called Greenbat Labs to help entrepreneurs. But why don't I just stop there? What did I leave out, Lindsay? What would you like to talk about when you tell your story?
Well, first of all, thank you again for having me. It's such a pleasure. It's interesting when I was thinking about you going through my career, it sounds like it was sort of a linear path. And I actually like to think about my career as the directions from a Waze app, where when you're on your journey, you're sort of expecting to go on a highway. You're expecting it to be sort of a straight path. You're expecting, to sort of follow everybody else. And where I actually found the most impact in my career was when those moments where you had to sort of go off-road
or I like that analogy.
Take a little bit of a different path. And for me, it actually started in college. I was actually a marketing and psychology major undergraduate. So finance was never a career that I even envisioned that I would pursue. And I ended up thinking that I was going to do consulting for a little while, go back and get my MBA, and then pursue my dream of becoming a brand manager. And I took a job at JP Morgan at the time in a consulting role. And the idea at the time was that I would do this consulting role for a couple of years or for a year, and then go into corporate communications and then go back and get my MBA. And when I first started in my first assignment at JP Morgan, it was on the trading floor, which is actually where you and I met at Goldman.
Exactly.
I fell in love with the trading floor. I just loved the environment, the energy. I had no idea what it was. And I just knew at that moment that I wanted to pursue this for the next few years. So I did my consulting role for a year, and then I ended up taking a job doing CMBS research for a year, and then I moved into sales. And I really kind of got my groove in sales. I really loved it. I think the client aspect of it is really what drove me. And then I ended up, so I was at JP Morgan for 6 years, moved over to Goldman. As you mentioned, I had a great career there. I loved it. I felt like I was learning and developing in the sales role. And then after about 17 years, I just felt like I was at a place where I just wasn't growing as an individual anymore. I wasn't being challenged, which I think is part of a key to success.
Why weren't you being challenged? The markets present opportunities for different thinking all the time. Clients and their interests evolve and change, and certainly people coming into the workforce evolve. But what was it that you were looking for that that wasn't there for you?
Yeah, it's a great question, because on paper, if you looked at where I was in my career, I was a partner. I was running one of the biggest businesses on sales businesses on the trading floor, and I was loving my job in the sense of the people that I worked with. I just felt like as an individual, I just wasn't growing anymore. I also had to pull it home. I had 2 kids. One of them was going into middle school, and between not feeling like I was being challenged, I like to win. We could talk a lot about that too. But I just felt like I wasn't in a position anymore to win. And the firm was great. The firm was great to me. But I just felt like at the time that in order for me to be more challenged, I had to make my own decision about how I was going to find that. So originally I made the decision to leave. That was really where
I recall.
and it was a tough decision, because it's something that, in your career, you need to take risk. And to leave such a great organization like that in a role that I felt like, once again, on paper was amazing. And the firm asked me to stay on as an advisory director. And that moment in time actually changed a lot, because I was able to still be engaged with the firm, still work with amazing people, and then go into a position where I could expand my skill set. I just like to continually develop and grow. And I just felt like at the time there wasn't that opportunity for me.
So there are a number of things that you said that are super interesting that I'd like to focus on a little bit more. You said that you had children in middle school and you had to make some choices, but I didn't hear in that description that you were stepping back from the pursuit of learning and impact and growing professionally, that both of those things were important to you. Was it that you could have more agency over how you spent your time that helped you make this move? Was it a risk that excited you? Actually, the risk itself was exciting. It wasn't one or the other, was it?
And it was really at the time making a bet on myself. And I think
bet on yourself.
I think that's really important in your career, where you have to be able to take control of your career and bet on yourself. And so I did want more agency in what I was doing. I do like just the challenge of trying something new. You might look at my career and say, look, you spent so many years in sales. How is that possible? Well, the reality is every 2 or 3 years, just like, yourself, when you were in those roles, the markets are constantly changing. You're constantly developing. And so, it was really important for me to be able to do that. It was the same thing when I became an advisor. I was able to start Greenback Labs. I had started Greenback Labs. It was actually started out as a financial education and media company.
Right.
And we were creating mobile games and animated videos to teach people about the financial markets. And I loved it. I knew nothing about technology. I knew nothing about gaming. And it was a fantastic learning curve for me. What I also found at the same time is I really missed the impact of working directly with people. And so I ended up pivoting the company to work with startups and early stage companies and working with entrepreneurs. And between the combination of the advisory work that I was doing at Goldman and the advisory work I was doing with these startups and early stage companies, my skill set really expanded and the challenges kept coming. And that is really what set me up to be COO of Carlyle today. Having, my career being grounded in the markets, spending a significant amount of my career working with clients, and then not being afraid to be in a position to take on new responsibilities and grow really set me up for where I am today.
Well, I've heard a number of different things that are part of your winning formula. Putting yourself in situations where you're learning, putting yourself in communities, medleys, work environments where you are impacting your clients and customers, but you're also learning from them. So, going back to the analogy of a Waze, there's time when you follow Waze and it's just like, why did I get off that highway? I'm in this back road. I don't know how to get back. The traffic's not moving. Everyone's now on Waze. Can you share an example in this journey where you thought, uh-oh, maybe I should have stayed on that highway?
It's a great question. I think there's many times throughout my career where I feel that way. And frankly, I don't think you're developing as a person and as a professional if you're not nervous or scared or feel a little bit uncomfortable in your role. And so I think, just for instance, when I started Greenback Labs, I really had no idea what was going on when it came to technology and building these games. And it was scary. And I was my own boss. And there's one very important lesson that I learned during that time period, which is you really need to surround yourself by other people who can help you develop and grow. For me, I always say it's really important to develop people that around you that you think are better than you, smarter than you, that can push you. And I found myself in that moment in Greenback Labs where I felt alone, and that wasn't a formula for success for me. And so I think being around people that are high quality, top notch, and can really push you, for me, that's success.
I really understand what you're saying. So much of it resonates with me. Lindsay, you were often one of those people that I would seek out when I was thinking through something that was hard at Goldman Sachs. People are complicated. And when I ran human capital management, which is HR, there was always a complex people dynamic that was really critical to the work environment of all the people that we really relied upon to make an impact. And more than once I found my way, rambling by Lindsay. She looked up, give me a minute, and then went for a walk with me around the trading floor, because you always spoke truth. You cared deeply about the organization and the organization's positioning to serve clients. So for that, I always be grateful and really recognized how you prioritize things. So you're now on a highway, maybe a different highway, Carlyle. Tell me how you decided to come back into the big world of financial services. Clearly, Carlyle is an extraordinary firm, and in a COO role. Tell me about that decision.
Well, Carlyle for me has been honestly one of the greatest joys of my career. For me in particular, I wanted to go to a place, we were talking about people and about people that pushed you. I mean, we have world-class people at Carlyle. I knew about the brand before I came. It's iconic. It's world-class. I knew about the culture,
Yes.
Being a culture of care, being a culture of trust, and all of that has truly come true. Being here. And for me, I wanted to go to a place that I felt like I could make an impact. We have 3 amazing businesses, credit, private equity, investment solutions. And I felt like there's a lot of value to unlock by sort of breaking down some of these silos. We're already a culture of collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most important things for me is that Carlyle is a place that truly cares about clients. And I felt like it would just fit with, my background on all the decisions that I've made, whether it was as a partner at Goldman, whether it was an advisory director, whether it was with my own business. If you think about clients first, then everything else just kind of falls into place. And for me, that was really important to come to a place where I felt like my values were shared with the company that I was working with. And also, I will say one last thing is I love the leader in the sense that, Harvey Schwartz,
I
our
do know
CEO,
Harvey Schwartz. Yes.
And, he's a leader that I just felt like I could believe in. And I felt like that's really important if it's part of my career to work with somebody that I believed in.
A leader you can believe in, trust, and inspired by. I would use those words to describe Harvey. We had an opportunity to work together for almost 20 years while at Goldman. So Chief Operating Officer, how do you define your role at Carlyle?
Yeah. I think about it in 2 separate buckets, really. One is, how do you run the day-to-day operations of the firm? And then 2, how do we actually grow the firm and build the firm? And going back to sort of the mindset of clients first. And so trying to redefine sort of the COO role. I think there's a lot of perception that the COO role needs to be sort of inward facing.
And some companies that is the case.
It is,
yes.
and it works really well for some of those companies. For us at Carlyle, it is, yes, we need to be inward facing and making sure that we are functioning and that we are built to be able to grow. But it's also about making sure that our decisions that we make start with the client. And so even decisions that we make from an operations perspective, it's what does the client want and what's the knock-on effect for that? And that's how we're really trying to define the COO role at Carlyle.
And you've mentioned that one of the things that has been important to you is understanding the culture of Carlyle and knowing that as a leader of the company, people are watching. Yeah. Share that experience of understanding and learning a new culture, particularly because often we find people are on a journey and they will not and may not want to work for the same company. So every time you're starting from scratch, or are you? Yeah. Walk us through that a bit.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think there's 2 important parts to it, I believe. One is what's really important when you come into a new organization is being able to build trust with the people that you're working with. For me, it was about coming in, listening to people, asking questions, and also letting them know that I'm a true collaborator with them. I think that's really important. But then I also think our day-to-day actions speak really loudly.
What you say, one thing, what you do and how you behave speaks louder than anything
and I am
that you can
very
write down.
I am very conscious of it, especially as one, a senior person, helping to sort of lead this unbelievable organization, but then also two, as a working mom. And I say that because, you and I were talking about an example the other day. I get in the office really early. I get in at 6:45, and somebody might say, "Oh gosh, if I want to become a COO, I have to come in at 6:45." Somebody's a real go-getter. That's actually not the reason why I do it. I actually do it because my husband works 4 blocks from here, and he gets in at 6:45, and I want to spend those 15 minutes commuting with him. And that's the reason why I do it. If I don't send emails on the weekends, if I don't have to, I don't want other people to think that you have to work 24/7 in order to be successful. And I just think that there are people that are in different parts of their lives, and you actually, as a professional, can work differently depending on where you are in your life, and just as successful and just as impactful. And I think being a role model, or being somebody that unintentionally or intentionally people might be watching, you just have to be thoughtful about the message that you want to give in both what you say and what you do.
There's a number of things that you commented on really speak to your philosophy of leadership. What I've heard is that you believe that it's your role to make sure that you're creating an environment that's truly inclusive, such that everyone has an opportunity to thrive. Everyone shows up at work with the lens of their lives. And in the environment that we live in today, and I don't think, that will change, there's a lot going on. Mm-hmm. How do you, as a leader with Harvey and other leaders at Carlyle, really show up for people and ensure that they can be who they are in the context of your primary priority, which is serving and adding value for your clients?
It's a great question. I think the first thing is for us to show up authentically and make sure that we can be who we are in front of other people. I am very vocal that I have 2 children. I am very vocal that I've been a working mom. Just recently, we launched something called Carlyle Conversations, where Harvey Schwartz is interviewing a senior leader so that we can actually, our people can actually get to know our leaders. And we just did our first one. It was widely successful in the sense that I think our employees were able to really get to know. He actually interviewed me, which was really fun. And I got to know people within our firm.
Was it recorded? I'd love to see it.
It was not recorded. It was internal only.
I'm not at Carlyle. I'll have to get a consulting gig or something so I could watch it.
But it was fun because I think you really could be yourself and be open with everybody in Carlyle. And I think the first thing is you just have to be authentic. And you also have to recognize and remember that everybody is different. Everybody's path is different. Everybody's ways, just directions are different, not just professionally, but also personally. And if you can do that as a leader, I think that that's probably one of the most critical things that you can do.
I also think it's really exciting that you're doing these connections, because it shows that you and Harvey have a relationship, that, you can needle him a little bit. I'm sure you did. And he is very comfortable talking about you and the business, because human relationships are very, very important, even in the construct of a financial services firm that is, big and bold. And at the end of the day, it's the individual people that you're recruiting. So what's top of mind for you here at Carlyle? And what are you most concerned about?
I think for me, what's most important right now in this part of both our firm as well as when it comes to our overall people is, how do we work together? How do we make sure that we are a very collaborative firm, and how do we deliver one Carlyle to our clients? Mm-hmm. I mentioned before that we have 3 businesses they have traditionally been relatively siloed, and how are we breaking down those silos?
Maybe you just spend a minute talking about those 3 businesses, because this is such an extraordinary opportunity for our listeners to learn about an industry that they might not be familiar with?
Yeah, so we have our private equity business, we have our credit business, and we have our investment solutions business. We were born and founded as a private equity business in DC. We are actually larger. Our credit business is actually the largest part of our business, which a lot of people don't know. And one of the things that we're actually trying to do is to make sure that we actually mirror our businesses much better from the executive officer's perspective. So for example, and we make very intentional decisions on this. So previously, most of our executive leaders were all private equity professionals. And me coming into the executive office, my background is in credit. So now our executive office actually better mirrors what we actually deliver and can service to our clients, private equity, credit, and investment solutions. And I think for us going forward, it's very much just about making sure that we continue to service our clients, that we continue to make sure that we are the employer of choice for our professionals, and that we're delivering for our shareholders. It's really about delivering sort of the one Carlyle to all of our shareholders and stakeholders.
And how do you deliver to your people in this uncertain time?
I mean, our people are our most important asset.
Yes.
I go back to one of the reasons why I'm so happy being at Carlyle is just the quality of the people that we have. But it's really important to make sure that we have the right opportunities for our people internally, making sure that the right positions, making sure that we create internal mobility. And talking before about intentional decisions, we've actually done that recently. We've taken John Redette, who is one of our best investors, and made him CFO. We took Meg Starr, who ran ESG, and we created a corporate affairs business where it's corporate communications, ESG, marketing, and she's running that. And I think it's really important to be able to show that we have internal mobility and that we want to have our best people in our best positions to truly be able to lead. So we're not just saying it, we're actually doing it, which I think is really important.
And we've heard so much from people in the starting out their careers that they have too an interest in learning and doing. So it's super interesting that you feel that it's important to do it at more experienced ranks as well. Why?
Well, I think it shows if you do it at more experienced ranks, it gives more junior people sort of, normally those types of moves are the most visible, right? So if you make those visible moves, then you show that that's part of the culture of the firm. Because when you have people moving internally sort of at the more junior ranks, it doesn't get quite the same, same type of fanfare. Although I think that's something that we're working on, because I think it's really important for an organization to see that there's growth, that there's opportunity, and that if you want a different challenge, going back to what we were talking about earlier, a lot of it is just taking control of your career and being able to have those conversations and being able to raise your hand. And I think we want to just be able to make sure that that our employees know that that's available to them.
And I would be remiss in our final moments not to ask you this question, and it's an advice question. So many people who will listen to our conversation will go, okay, great. How do I get there? How do I become a COO? How do I, stay on the highway, get off the highway? What advice would you give to someone who is juggling it all, taking in the external environment, their internal priorities? What advice would you give to help someone make sense of it all?
Yeah, I think the most important lesson that I learned throughout my entire career is get comfortable being uncomfortable. I know you and I share that because we've talked about that. We've talked about that before.
If I were in church, I'd say hallelujah, but I'm not. So,
I mean, for me, it has been a guiding principle, right? There's decisions that you make in your career and in your life that can be difficult, or you may be in situations that could be a little bit challenging. And I think as soon as you can just get comfortable with the fact that it's going to be an uncomfortable situation or uncomfortable decision, then you can just persevere and you can succeed. And I think that's really important.
And there's no straight line.
There's no straight line.
Right? Getting off-piste is an opportunity, and it becomes a lot less scary when you have people like you and other humans who really care. Lindsay, it has really been a pleasure to spend time with you. I know that so many people will really benefit from your perspective. And as I thought, coming into the office, seeing you in person, having old school conversation is inspiring to me, and I know to many. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been fantastic.
And look forward to watching your journey with other leaders at Carlyle. It's an important firm. And important firms have important responsibilities to your clients and the communities that you operate in. And I know that the run will continue to be spectacular. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you. Thank you.